Hello, Fish Faithful. This is Marlins Daily on the Fan Arch Network. I am Kurt Semder. And the Marlins get it done to wrap up the homestand. They avoid the sweep, and they beat the Red Sox last night in a game they had to have, and a game that the Marlins were able to win thanks to some incredible individual efforts by some players that we weren't quite sure that they were going to be able to get it done or give the team what they needed. But the Marlins were also a little bit lucky in this game, and you need a little bit of that sometimes. So Marlins got exactly what they needed in a 4-0 win over Boston, and like I said, avoided a sweep, which would not have been good or pleasant to talk about here on this Thursday. Now, look, the big effort and the big performance that we have to start talking about with this game was from Ryan Gusto, who, a bullpen game was what was happening here, a second straight bullpen game from the team. But Ryan Gusto pitched like a starting pitcher. And you know what? They might want to think about just letting him go from this point forward. And I'm not just saying that because he pitched 5 2/3 shutout innings, because he threw 89 pitches in this game. I'm not just saying it because of that. I'm saying it because this team needs to cut it out with the bullpen games and really cut it out with two bullpen games in their rotation. And for Ryan Gusto, he's shown he can do this. He doesn't do it very often, but he's shown that he can do this. This is the second time this season that he has gone more than 5 innings this year. He went 6 against Atlanta earlier this month. The 89 pitches are the second most that he's thrown this season. He threw 91 back in June against the Phillies. So he has shown that he can do this. And maybe it's time to give him a chance to show it more often and to get it done, because the Marlins were in a spot, as we talked about yesterday, where they used almost everybody in their bullpen the night before in an 11-inning loss to the Red Sox, again, due to the fact that it was a bullpen game, and put themselves in a situation where they had very, very limited availability out of the bullpen. So Ryan Gusto was going to need to give this team innings, whether they were effective or not. If he went out there and, gave up a bunch of runs, there was not a whole lot that they were going to be able to do that Clayton McCullough was going to have at his disposal. Luckily, though, Gusto was sensational. And again, pitched into the 6th inning, didn't give up any runs, and kept Boston really from getting anything going. Now, they had other situations here, a couple of arms able to go. Jansen Jung pitched an inning in relief. Again, another player who had to just step up when needed to help this ball club out, and got it done with a solid inning of relief. The bats were there for the most part in this game. Some good individual efforts here. Heriberto Hernandez with 2 hits and an RBI. Javier Sanoja back at the bottom of the order, where he excels from the 9 spot. Stop taking him out of it. 3 for 4 with an RBI. Otto Lopez, 2 for 4, 2 runs scored. Both of those runs scored in interesting ways. We'll talk about that in a second. Maybe I should just stop talking about the lineup at this point, because we saw yet another crazy lineup that this team put out there, with Kyle Stowers batting leadoff, Otto Lopez batting 6th behind Jacob Marcy, who's back up into the 5th spot in this order. I don't know what to say anymore about the way this lineup gets put together and what their thinking is behind it, because I can't figure it out, and truthfully, I don't think they know what they're doing. But besides all that, as I mentioned, they were also a little bit lucky in this game. Red Sox, 4 errors, 2 of those errors directly resulting in Marlins runs. Connor Wong, who had a ton of problems catching the ball 2 games ago. If you were watching the game, it just seemed like every at-bat there was a pitch that he should catch behind the plate, wasn't able to get it done. And yes, he's back there playing because Adley Rutschman is dealing with an injury, but his throwing error in the 2nd inning, when Otto Lopez is trying to steal second base, directly results in a run. Then a fielding error by the Red Sox in the 8th lets Otto Lopez score again. So 2 of the 4 runs scored as a result of Red Sox errors. Fine. Get it any way you can, and they were able to get out of there with a win because the pitchers that they had at their disposal, and there weren't many, were able to get the job done and get the Marlins a win that they desperately needed. A loss would have dropped them back to 500. They're now 2 games over. A loss would have had them fall further behind in the wild card race. They are still just 4 games behind San Diego for that 3rd wild card spot. And now they finished what doesn't really feel like it, but finished up a winning homestand, 4-2. Swept the Nationals, lost 2 of 3 to Boston. Okay. 4-2 on the road, 4-2 at home, head back out on the road now. Let's see what happens. But all in all, like we said, solid performances from some guys who needed to step up and had no choice but to give you more than maximum effort. And they not only gave you the effort, but they executed. And just great job by these guys. Ryan Gusto, can't say enough. Great job in this game. Great effort by him. Give Jensen Junk a lot of credit for getting out there and giving them an inning. And look, nice win. Definitely like to see it. Now, when we talk about that, there are still some troubling signs going forward, especially with the offense. And the bats are what I'm concerned about, and specifically runners in scoring position. We have talked about this throughout the entire Boston series, and it reared its ugly head again last night. 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position, which sounds bad enough as it is. The 3 games against Boston, 5 for 46, which means 2 things. 1, the Marlins had plenty of opportunities to drive in runs in this series. 46 at bats with runners in scoring position in 3 games. You should be scoring a lot of runs, and you should at least be winning 2 out of 3 in that series. But they only got 5 hits in those situations. And those 5 hits didn't always result in scoring a run. You know, a solo home run by Roberto Hernandez the night before. The runs that were scored by errors last night. This team we talked about has the problem where a lot of their runs have to be scored by stringing together hits. If you get a single and a single, but then the next 3 guys strike out, you got nothing out of it. And unfortunately, that kind of seems to be the pattern that we've been seeing a lot lately from this team, where they get 2 guys on base, or they get the bases loaded, and they're just not able to cash in. They got to get better at that. And they have to get better at that in a hurry, because September is right around the corner, and this baseball season is winding down in a hurry. The other thing I wanted to talk about with regards to the bats, we praised Griffin Conine on this show, along with everybody else, but we praised Griffin Conine just a week ago, after his really, really excellent game against the Phillies, in a game that the Marlins lost. He was just playing lights out, hitting home runs left and right. And since that time, over the last 6 games, he's batting 2 for 20. 2 for 20. Batting, what is that, 100, I think? I don't think I need to do math there. I think that's 100. No home runs, no RBI. Struck out 10 times, struck out half of those 20 at-bats. I think that there's 2 reasons for that. 1, Major League pitching, guys are adjusting. The scouting reports are getting out there on a guy who, was taking advantage of the fact that there wasn't a lot on him. But secondly, and I've talked about this in regards to the lineup and this sort of thing, you got to keep guys in the lineup, and you got to give them a chance to hit and work through some stuff, in the sense of you got to give them a chance. You can't hide them when they struggle against left-handed pitching, for example. Griffin Conine may go through a tough stretch, but you got to play him against lefties. You got to let him get better at it. You have to let him work through it. It's important for young players, because if you just put them in situations where, it's favorable all the time, then you never know what they can actually do when you're going to need them to do it. I'll give you a perfect example of somebody I saw the other day, and this is the kind of situation I'm talking about, and it's in the same division. Carson Bench with the Mets. really, really struggled at the start of the season. Left-handed bat, struggled against left-handed pitching. The Mets haven't done a lot right this year, as their record indicates, but there's one thing they did right with him. They just let him play. They just kept him in the lineup. Lefty, righty, didn't matter. They took him out occasionally late in games when they needed to pinch hit in a key matchup or a key spot, but for the most part, they let him play. And he worked through it. And his numbers against lefties aren't fantastic, but he's a more confident player and a more better all-around player because of it now. And people talk about him as a candidate for National League Rookie of the Year, which I stood up and took notice at when I saw that and had to go back and take a look at the numbers and see what's going on in right here in the same division. Let the young guys play. Let the guys who you think are your future play. Let them work through it on the field and get out of your own heads with the analytics. And I think the team will be better off for it in the long run. Griffin Conine being one example of that. This team now finally gets a day off, which they need right now because they put themselves in this situation. They only had 4 guys available in the bullpen yesterday after Ryan Gusto, Jansen Junk for 1 inning being one of them. It worked. They got through it. But this bullpen desperately needs a day off to reset. The Marlins may want to think about shifting around some things in their rotation. I talked about this yesterday. Maybe having Junk pitch an inning, this is an opportunity to move him around in the rotation a little bit. Maybe this is an opportunity to move Tyler Phillips up a little bit so you can at least break up the bullpen games and not have them back-to-back. Even if you're going to let Ryan Gusto try to stretch it out, there's going to be games where he's going to not be able to go more than 4 innings just because of the pitch count. He'll go up. My point is, use the day off to your advantage. And for the offense, and for some of these guys, the day off is big. Kyle Stowers just came back from the injured list, seemingly ahead of schedule. He's not running all that well, needs to DH from time to time. Day off for him will be good. Joe Mack is still dealing with that shoulder. He came back, but again, good job. Let him have a day, to re-up and relax a little bit and get some rest. And some of these other guys who have been finally actually playing every day, the Xavier Edwards, the Otto Lopez is the world, and Otto finally seems to be hitting again, which is nice to see. Take this day off, rest, recuperate, travel, obviously, and get ready for what's going to be a major road trip, a 7-game road trip that begins this weekend. We're going to talk a lot more in depth about this tomorrow. But this road trip is tremendously important, not because of the teams that they're playing, but the teams that are ahead. We talked on an earlier show about how the Marlins schedule in September is an absolute gauntlet. It is brutal. They play playoff contender after playoff contender after playoff contender with a series against the Mets somewhere in the middle there. So when you have 7 games against 2 teams that are not in playoff contention, knowing what's coming up ahead, you need to take advantage of it. And I'll say it right now, if they go out there and they play flat in these 7 games against the Washington Nationals and the Kansas City Royals, then what happens in September won't matter. I still don't particularly think that they're going to play well in September against some of these contending teams based on the fact that they have not played well against contending teams for the last month and a half. But they have to take advantage of these matchups, these 7 games coming up. They've been pretty good at that. On the road might be a little bit more challenging, obviously, than at home, but I think they can handle it. And if they just put this team in a situation to succeed over the next week, setting up the rotation, giving the guys the most rest they can, go with a lineup that's somewhat consistent, and I just mean somewhat consistent. A lineup that doesn't look like you just took the names, picked them out of a hat, and threw them against the wall to decide the order. Maybe try that for a week. That's all. But we'll see what happens in the upcoming series, and we'll see what happens over the next week or so. But again, Marlins are coming off of a nice win. and hopefully they can keep that momentum going into Washington starting on Friday. We'll have a lot to talk about here on the show tomorrow. We're going to preview the National Series, took a look ahead at the schedule and what's coming up, and we'll dive a little bit more into everything that's been going on regarding the scouting department, the firing, and what exactly this all means for the Marlins going forward. So a lot going on Marlins Daily to close out the week. We will see you here tomorrow. Thanks everybody for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you then.